Hi, my name is Dom and welcome to the Energy Audit. First of all, we want to find a definition for the energy audit. And the energy audit is an assessment of the energy needs and efficiency of a corporation, department, building, business, or a home. In other words, we want to assess how much energy we use within the environment on which we live. And what does it seek? What is the purpose of an energy audit? Well, an energy audit seeks to prioritize the energy uses according to the greatest to the least cost-effective opportunities for energy savings. So we want to do the energy audit to ensure that we use as less energy as possible and thus reduce our carbon footprint. So what we're going to do in this energy audit? Well, there are 5 major tasks for you to complete. First of all, we will do an introduction on the company that we are targeting for energy audit, and we will then complete the 3 types of energy audits. The first one is called the ICT walkthrough energy audit. The second one is called a detailed energy audit, and lastly is an investment grade energy audit. And once all the energy audit has been done, decisions have been made, and plans are implemented, well, we need to be monitoring the energy audit. So the complete energy audit, which is an ongoing activity undertaken for continuous improvements in sustainability, monitoring strategies and action plans need to be continually monitored to account for any internal or external development. And now what we are going to do task 1, which is the introduction to a targeted ICT infrastructure. This can be your place of work, a corporation which you are familiar with, or you can use, if you don't have any network to which you can relate to, you can use the World Medic Corporation case study, which is available from TAFE Online. Well, there are 6 tasks in here, and you will have to put all these together in 500 words. Now let's look at the task one by one. Company overview. Here you need to provide an overview of the selected company and its nature of being. For example, what does the company do to generate income? Identify the company goals and objectives. Now let's make an example. A company that we can all relate to. Let's say McDonald's Corporation. It's a worldwide company in Australia. They do have over 1,000 restaurants. And what do? Well, they sell hamburgers, they sell chicken. How do they sell them? They sell them in a fast food chain operations. People don't even have to come into the restaurant. They can go to the drive-in, place their order. The order is accepted. They will take your money, and then you move down to the next window where you will get your goodies, and off you go. Or you can go inside the restaurant. And this is what they do to generate income. They sell food, fast food, all right? And what are their goals? Well, their goals is to be the premier fast food restaurant chains worldwide. Now, if we want to make it smaller within our country, well, the best selling corporations in fast food in Australia. In point number 2, we're going to provide an overview of the targeted ICT infrastructure. You need to provide just a general description of what the company has and how it works. Do not propose system upgrades or replacement at this time. You need to explain what the current ICT infrastructure consists of and how it works. In this example, which I'm going to show you now, we see a multi-operational sites infrastructure. We have an operational sites here in Sydney, one in Melbourne, and one in Brisbane. They are all connected together by a frame relay connection, which is provided by Telstra or Optus, just a common carrier. Now, for this purpose, the three operational sites are exactly the same. And for the sake of these demonstrations, let us say that the operator at this workstation wants to fetch a file which is located in one of the servers here in Brisbane. So how will it work? Well, the signal will have to go through the internal router, going through the frame relay switch. When it goes to the frame relay cloud, it will then find its exit to the Brisbane gateway and will go through the frame relay switch and then the local switch until it hits the server, and by issuing this request, of course, like in any other communication, a request is followed by a response, and then the response, the file, will travel back more or less the same way until it will return into this workstation. Well, then what other things can we say about this ICT infrastructure? How does it work? We have just seen an example of internal connections, but what about if these workstations here in Melbourne wants to access the internet? Well, these workstations is part of the Melbourne local area network, and it is also part of the trusted zone of this infrastructure. As you can see, this trusted zone, it is protected by this firewall, and there is another zone which is called the DMZ, or demilitarized zone, which has all the most important services that need to be connected directly to the internet, protected by this zone, and does not have a direct connection except between these two firewalls with the trusted zone. So let us say that there is over the internet there is a user and who wants to connect to our web server over here. Okay, so what we will do, we issue a request. This request is filtered through the firewall. It will get down to the web server, which will then provide a response and will send the requested file, which will then return to this workstation, so which is over the internet. So this particular connection does not have any contact with the trusted zone, which is our operational sites, one in Sydney, one in Melbourne, and one in Brisbane. So therefore this site, it shows, has some sort of security in place to protect the trusted zone with the internet connections. But one more thing, what about if a workstation here wants to connect to the internet? Well, if it wants to connect to the internet, there is first of all this firewall over here. This firewall is going to allow this user internet connection. If it does have internet connection, it has been configured to do so, then it will proceed to go past this firewall. Then it will go through the router and will go over the internet. If this one here would have been external web server, then we'll fetch the request through via response, the file, and will come back, and then this will be filtered by the firewall again, and then will come down here to the workstation and will appear into the internet browser. So this is a security that is in place to protect the people from the inside that do not have access to the internet. They can go, and the response coming back, they are filtered by this firewall. So therefore, the viruses and all other malicious malware will not be able to get into, or theoretically will not be able to come in. It all depends on how this firewall it is configured and how all other network security measures are in place to protect the network. Well, this is point number 2. You need to describe the infrastructures on how good it is and how it serves the network. So then the point number 3 is the ICT services. You list and describe the services provided by the ICT infrastructure to support the organization. For example, does it have any help desk operations? Does it have first, second level, third level support? Well, in these cases, you will have to you will have to describe more or less provide an overview. Always you need to limit within the 500 words for the entire section of the introduction. And this, of course, it extends to the services which are provided to the users. For example, do they have email services? Do they have an intranet? Do they have a web service? Do they have local security logons? Like, if you work in a corporation, the first thing you will have to do is to actually log on, right? And provide your credentials, your username, your password. Do they have that? How does it work? Right? So generally, remember that it is a general overview to describe what the company has and how it works, and how this network it is supported. This is very important in ICT sustainability, because you may have support services which could be eliminated, or they could be reduced, or they could be replaced by more efficient business processes. So that's why in the introduction we need to say the things as they are at present, without providing suggestions for improvement. This will come later in the energy audit. Then you will produce in point number 4 a network diagram, and I've just shown you one, so you can do one of these with Visio. Do it the best way that you can, and Microsoft Visio is a very efficient tool to create network diagrams, organizational charts, and so on. Then we need to discuss about the sustainability culture. Sustainability culture of the ICT infrastructure, the corporations, the targeted company. Well, you need to remember one thing when it comes to attitude, and it's here described into the assignment template. You need to remember that attitude is an intangible thing. You cannot touch an attitude. It describes how we think rather than how we act. Right? We can act because we want to appear to have a green culture, right? But then when we act, it says, ooh, if we are going to do all of these things to reduce our carbon footprint, it's going to cost much more, right, than what we're doing at present. So why do it, right? And your actions, right, of the enterprise may not be so green as they want to appear to be with their words. So everything in the enterprise, as far as sustainability is concerned, it's largely about culture. It is a necessary starting point, a desire to change, which is followed by a commitment to change, which is followed by actions, which is followed by measurement and effectiveness of those actions. Having a positive attitude towards ICT sustainability is very important because it precedes everything else. And as is often the case in business, those attitudes are most effective if they come from the top, if they come from management, if the management buys into sustainability. And it is essential part of ICT sustainability to have management contribution, management leadership in having a sustainable environment. So in this section, in point number 5, you need to provide an initial assessment of the company ICT culture and what policies do they have in place to maintain a sustainable environment. For example, the company where you work in, they would have already taken certain sustainability measures. Number one, they could have said, from the most simple deployment, eliminate all side printers. Those are the small desk jet printers attached directly to computers. So deploy only larger network printers, and force double-sided printing, where the user can override if he needs to print just single-sided. This will reduce paper consumption, right? Which paper is made out of trees. So to make paper, you've got to chop down trees. So if you do reduce by 50% your paper consumptions, what do? You reduce your 50% the need of chopping down trees, right? So next is the stakeholder analysis. In point number 6, you're going to provide an analysis of your stakeholders, and using as a guide the stakeholder analysis table, which is located at page 7 of the stakeholder management reading material, and which this stakeholder file is available on TAFE Online. And this is the file, and if we go to page 7, this is the stakeholder management. This is what you will need to read, and on page 7 there is the stakeholder planning, and you will need to use this template here. Of course, you will need to provide a good, reasonable assessment of your stakeholders. So I invite you to read this document. Remember that this assessment is research based, is project driven, and you will need to do your research, and we have provided you on TAFE Online necessary resources that will minimize your need to do further research. So you will using the template, you will complete the stakeholder analysis. And with this, we now are going to move on to the next section. And welcome to the ICT walkthrough audit report, and this is task number 2. We just need to read some of these please note instructions. That the ICT walkthrough energy audit is a preliminary report performed on ICT equipment to provide the initial analysis on energy consumption and associated emissions for deployed ICT devices. And when you have all information of the ICT devices deployed, you need to create this table over here, and I'm going to take you step by step on how to complete and how to obtain the information. And you will need to understand what in ICT walkthrough energy report it's all about. And to do this, you will need to go through the sustainability base knowledge file published on the telephone line, and particularly on chapter 5 energy audit, pages 11 to 16. Well, the walkthrough energy audit, just like the word implies, walkthrough, it means just walking and looking and observing. So if we go back to the to our ICT infrastructure example, we can see again all the 3 operational sites, and visually what do we see? Well, we see computers, we see servers, we see domain controllers, we see printers, we see switches, we see firewalls, we see routers, and we see web servers, as you can see them over there. We see Exchange servers, and we see all other devices which they will not work unless they are powered on. At the moment you flick the switch on to these devices, generally they stay on 24 hours a day, every day of the year. And many times, once you turn them on, you will never switch them off until they break down or they need a routine service. So we need to be able to do the ICT walkthrough energy report. We need to understand, become aware, and research the energy consumption of each of these devices. And how are we going to do that? Well, we will do that by creating a table such as this one here. Now let's have a look. In the first column, I have listed 2 examples, the router and the server. Then we have the descriptions and devices hours of operation. This router is a Cisco 2800 series, 24 hours of operation. That means it stays on 24 hours a day. Now what is the power usage in watts? That 300 watts. Right? Now where do you get all this information, first of all? Right? Well, how do we get all that information? Well, each device has a faceplate. The faceplate at the back, usually at the back of the device or underneath the device, it has the manufacturer faceplate which states how much electricity or how many watts per hour this device consumes when powered on. It's more or less just like your washing machine. When you go into say Harvey Norman or any of these electrical shops, you will see that all these devices, they have a tag attached to it, and which has the energy. Each star, it means a certain degree of energy consumption or environmentally friendliness, so to speak, but also tell you how many kilowatts that device is expected to be to consume within a year. So for each of these devices, if we can locate the faceplate, if we cannot get this information from the device, what are we going to do? Well, that's the beauty of the internet. The beauty of the internet. Now, remember, I'm going to just copy this part. Cisco 2800, right? Copy, and I'm gonna Google this, and there you are. Cisco 2800 datasheet, series integrated router by Cisco. Product services is a router. There is the thing there. It tells you all the specification, and will also, when you navigate, you will also find the power consumption on how many watts per hour this device will consume. And I'm going to let you do all these research. Otherwise, I will do the assignment for you. So once you have established the faceplate value of the power usage in watts for each of these devices, then you need to determine how many units do you have. Well, you look at your network carefully. Remember, it's a walkthrough energy audit. So you will go into the communications room and you look how many of these devices do you have. Okay, so if I look at here, how many routers do I see? 1, I see 2, I see 3, I see 4. All right, so there are 4. Okay, so now I want the daily power consumption for these devices in kilowatts. Now here it's in watts and here is in kilowatts. 1 kilowatts equates to 1000 watts. So how do we make this calculation? Well, let's get the calculator. Now we have these devices, Cisco devices, uses 300 watts per hour, and we're gonna multiply this by 24 because it's a 24-hour operation. Then we multiply this by 4 units because we have 4 of them, so we multiply by 4 and we have 28,800 watts, and for every 24 hours. Now we're going to divide this by 1000 and we get the value in kilowatts, which is 28.8. As you can see in the table, it's 28.8. Now we need to find out the daily CO2 emissions in tons. And now how do we do that? Well, again, now have a look. I have a link for you, which is the carbon neutral at .com.au. So we go to this site, and this site will bring us to the carbon neutral calculator. Now you need to get used to with this calculator because it does a lot of things. It uses the vehicle uses the energy, even air travel. It's a fantastic tool to have, all right? And if you want to learn more, there is this link about our calculator, and you go in there, all right? So we want to check the energy usage for what we have done. Okay, this is site. You can type in the site, work. You can give it a name. It's not important over here. What is important? It's the variable you need to enter in, and you need to enter in each state. Now, if you are in Victoria, which the electricity is mainly generated by burning coal, obviously the impact on CO2 emission will be greater than in New South Wales, where we generate a lot of our power in New South Wales by hydroelectric energy. So there is New South Wales. Now electricity used, that's what we want to calculate. Now we said that in our energy, in our calculation, we had 28.80 kilowatt. So there you are. I copy this, and now I go back to the energy calculator, and its units are in kilowatt. So I'm going to paste that into there, 28.8 kilowatts, and now I'm going to calculate. So I click add to total, and it makes the calculations. So it says you now have a total of one site added that have created an estimated 0.03 tons of CO2 emissions. Okay, so now what I have got in my sample spreadsheet here, it's 0.03 daily CO2 emissions in tons. Remember, because we have done the calculations of the daily consumptions of all the routers that we have in our network. Now, one most important thing you need to understand about this calculator, it will keep on adding the more you do, but for what we are doing, we don't want to keep on adding because we want single values. So in order for this to work, you will have to shut down the site and then restart it when you need to refresh it. Okay, so we move on. The annual power consumption in kilowatt. So how many days are in a year? Well, that's what we want to know, isn't it? I now need to calculate. I don't know. I think the last time I counted was 365 days in a year. Now we multiply this variable by 28.8 kilowatts, which is the daily consumption, and we want the annual consumption. So we need to 365 times 28.8, which equals to 10,512 kilowatt. So now let's go and have a look on my spreadsheet, and here the calculation still matches, right? 10,512 kilowatt of power consumptions annually. Now, what is the annual cost of power consumption? Now we go and start to calculate the bill that we are going to have for this, right? Now let's say that we are assuming to pay the average of 30 cents per kilowatt. Depending on the state in the country where you are in, well then this figure will change, right? So you multiply this by 0.03 cents, and in my spreadsheet here will come to $315.36. The next variable is the annual CO2 emission in tons. Now we want to here calculate how much emission, carbon emission in tons our 4 routers will provide us. So we already calculated this. You see here, it's the daily was 0.03. So if we calculate, that's the daily emissions of 0.03 tons times 365, because there are 365 days in a year, we end up with 10.95 tons of CO2 emissions. And now you will continue. I'll give you another example over here. I'm not going to redo the whole calculations again. I guess by now you would have got the drift on how to do this. So once you have identified all of the devices in your walkthrough, you list them into this spreadsheet, and you can use this as a template. No problem with that. You can even modify this template if you want to make it more extensive. You can, but as a minimum you will need to stick to this template to provide the information that I provided you with and make the calculations just as I have shown it to you. And you see down here we will have the table above is a sample audit performed by walking through the ICT infrastructure. You should audit all the devices that you can visually see. If you are using the case study, all devices that are described in the World Medic proposed network upgrade document, they need to be used. Then informations of devices, power usage can be obtained from the manufacturer faceplate, as I have explained, usually a sticker at the back or under the device, or by researching online at manufacturer website, as I've just shown it to you. And then the CO2 emissions are based on the amount of energy used in kilowatt hours that each device consumed and computed using the carbon neutral calculator, as I have just shown it to you. The detailed general audit report is based on the data that we have obtained from the walkthrough energy audit, and you would have had this spreadsheet nicely completed, which lists all the devices, and you will have the annual CO2 emissions in tons, and you will have all the total computed here into the bottom line. So this data, it is required to complete the general audit report. Now the watt meters. Oh, what is a watt meter now? we are now you've now been introduced to this new term. Watt meters can be used to test energy consumption of each device over a period of 24 hours. So let's have a look what a watt meter is. And for those of you who do not know what a watt meter is, well, we will need to Google. And where we can find, remember, this is a research based, and we will have a good description here in Wikipedia about the watt meter, and this is what it looks like. Now, what this device does, well, you plug this device into the power outlet. Notice this is different because it's an American device, but you can buy this as cheap as $9, $10 at Aldi, or you can go to Bunnings and buying one. So it's a very simple device to use. You plug it into the wall outlet, and this plug here, it is the power that, say, it will come out of your Cisco router, or a Cisco switch, or a computer, or even a refrigerator, and you plug it into the watt meter, and the watt meter will give you the amount of watts per hour that it is actually using. You can then switch, to kilowatts here, and it's got many things that will also measure. But what we are after, it is the amount of power in watts, right? So that's what a watt meter is. Okay, one more issue is that why are these tests necessary? Why should we sampling each device type for actual consumption within your environment? Well, because usually power circuits are provisioned based on the faceplate rating, which we have based our walkthrough energy audit here. But it is a practice that usually results in waste, given that servers and workstations never consume the legal faceplate power value. So power calculators evolved because IT managers demanded a more accurate yet still safe upper boundary for circuitry provisioning. So the test results reported in the detailed general audit report are measurement of maximum and average power usage within the company's own environment, which is then benchmarked against the faceplate rating, and then the average power usage over 24 hours in a production environment is used to calculate the CO2 emissions. Now, let's qualify this statement. You have a Cisco switch that we are now doing a detailed energy auditing. We have looked at the faceplate rating, and we have reported this into the walkthrough energy audit. Now, if this switch now it is located into a communications room where there is no air conditioning, the average temperature into this room, let's say, it will be 35 degrees. This device is overheating, will use more electricity. If it is instead located into a communications room where there is air conditioning and the average temperature is about 18 degrees, well, it will use less energy. Right? So that's why we are going to do this. And let us say we need to build a new communications room, and we need to audit through the detailed energy audit that we do for the devices. We will then know how much power, the upper bound limit of power provisioning that has to be provided. Now, give you a more graphical example. Look into your own home. The average power out the power point into your home, such as this one here, it can draw 10 amps, and these figures are applicable if you are in Australia. So it's about 10 amps. But if you look at the cabling requirement, the power provisioning requirement for your electrical stove, these requirements are 15 amps. So that it means that you will have to have a bigger cable. You'll have to provision more power for your electrical stove, your cooking stove, than you would for your refrigerator, which you only need 10 amps. So this is the difference between a walkthrough energy audit and a detailed energy audit. And now what we need to do, we need to go and see how this is done. Okay, please read all the information that it is provided here in the base knowledge file, is indicated here, and in the benchmarking base knowledge file. Alright, so that's how we do. We create another spreadsheet. And again, I've got the example of the router and the switch. So I'm only going to do the router, and you can rewind the tape if you need more to review it. So we have the device type. It is a router, the device of operations and hours of operations. The maximum power usage is stated on the faceplate. We already done this calculation in the walkthrough energy audit. Now, what we have done, we have placed the router on a watt meter, and we have let it run in our own environment, and found out that the company's benchmark was not 300, as stated on the faceplate, but was 250 watts. We then do the 24 hours energy consumption test, right? And it gave us 200 watts. We had, say, we have tested 2 units. Remember, we have 4 units in our network. Remember we have calculated 4 in our testing environment, 4 routers, okay? So, but we have only tested 2 units, all right? But the number of units deployed are 4. So the average daily consumption for the deployed units is 19.20, all right? So as opposed here, which was 28.80, right? So then the annual power consumption for the deployed units is in kilowatts is 7,008 kilowatts, and the annual emission for deployed units in tons it's 7.43 tons, which we have computed using the carbon neutral calculator. And again, remember what I said earlier, we have to go and get the carbon neutral calculator again, start afresh when you do new consumption, ensure that we go into energy, and we change the state into the state on which you are located in, the energy or the amount of electricity used, and we add to the total, and we got 7.46 tons. Let's go back to the spreadsheet and let's have a look what the general audit report has reported us. In here, this been the it's 7.43 when I done it earlier. So the fluctuation is depending on the at the time you actually do it. This was done some time ago, and the carbon neutral calculators adjusts the number of CO2 within each state periodically. So in other words, in reviewing what we have done, we have stated that the Cisco 2800 on the faceplate is 300 watts, and then within the company owned benchmark, the maximum power test showed 250, but it was 200 watts during the average. So that was the upper boundary, and this was the average. We tested 2 units. We have 4 numbers deployed. We make all the calculation as we have done before, and with the average daily consumption for the deployed units in kilowatts, that's 4 deployed units, it's 19.20 kilowatts. and then the annual power consumption deployed for all of these units was 7,008.008 kilowatts, which brought us, using the carbon neutral calculator at the time that this calculation was first made, was 7.43 tons of usage. So then after you finish all the detail like you have done, I have done only 2 devices for you to show you as an example. You add all the totals at the bottom, and then it is done. You have done now concluded the detailed energy audit report.